Everyone, welcome to Week 8, Day 2. Looks like Wargame Red Dragon is available on Epic Games Store for free right now, so I'll pick that up. I've played it on Steam before, and it's one of those games that is really interesting to sort of analyze, I think, from a game design perspective. We're going to talk a little bit about game design today, so this is kind of topical. So what it's a real-time strategy game that has a really different take on the genre from games like StarCraft or Age of Empires. The economy is basically stripped away. You don't have peasants farming or harvesting Vespine gas on the map. Instead, you have a certain amount of command points that grow over time, and you can use those to plop a battleship. They don't have battleships, but frigates and things like that onto the world. And there's different command zones, and if you occupy the command zone, then you seize it, and the command zone will provide more build points for you, and there's different victory conditions, but basically that's how you win the game. If you capture all the command points, you're going to win. And what makes the game interesting is that it has like 1,000 or so different units in it, which is really exceptional, right? There's so many different countries you can play as. There's Korea, North Korea, South Korea, France, West Germany, East Germany. It's set during the Cold War. So it's NATO versus the, Soviets, basically, right? It's not exactly like the Warsaw Pact, because China and North Korea are in there as well. But kind of communism versus democracy. And the two sides have different units, like different ships for the communists and for the capitalists. What makes the game interesting, besides this wide variety of units, which to a certain extent is illusion, right? A lot of the units are just copy-pasted the same. So they're going to give it a Korean name because it's a South Korean infantry unit, but it's really just the same as another unit. Maybe slightly different health values or something like that. I don't know. But the different countries do play very differently. If you play as the UK, it's a very different experience from playing as America, and America's got the best tanks in the game. The UK has some really good special forces. The Koreans have, they can do these big infantry swarms that are pretty impressive, and they've got, I think, the best artillery in the game. Stuff like that. So it's a neat take on the RTS. And not having to worry about micromanaging your farms and Vespine gas and things like that. That also makes the game. Nice, because the worst thing about Age of Empires is that you're micromanaging your battle. There's this tough battle going on. You got your Janissaries, and they got some catapults, and those catapults will wipe out your army. So you have to sit there and very carefully micro your army so they don't get wiped out. And in the meantime, you're based back home. You've got no econ going on, right? And so sometimes I just order my army back home just so I could go back home and repair, fix all my farms and make some new villagers and build a new town center and stuff like that. I would actually just pull my army out of combat, because if you don't, they get wiped out pretty easily. And so Red Dragon doesn't have that problem. It's purely just based on tactics, right? And a big part of the game is scouting. So you can't see units in trees. The only way you can see a unit in a tree is if you have a scout in there. So you get some scout infantry, stick them in there, tell them to not fire, and they'll just sit tight and scout the area. You can send helicopters around. Helicopters get shot down really easily. It's really kind of disgusting. You fly over, some scouts, hiding in the trees, and they just shoot the helicopter down, right? There's some big issues that I have with the game, and that's one of them. Is that you send a scout to scout out the people in there, but in order to scout them, you have to be within the range of a guy with his pistol, because the visibility radius is really small in the trees. And so you send your scout thing over, and by the time your scout helicopter can see the infantry in the trees, the infantry in the trees pull out their pistols and shoot the helicopter down. You lose all those command points. And so if you're really on top of the ball, you'd see where they are and then order an artillery strike on them and blow them up. But a big part of the game is scouting. And so artillery can fire the entire distance of the map. Like the longest range artillery, you could shoot all the way across the map and hit targets on the other side. But if you don't have scouting on them, then you don't know where the enemy are. So if you could like sneak somewhere into the trees back there, some scouts, and see where their command is and their command base and stuff like that, if you could scout them, then from all the way like way back over here, you can shell it with artillery. And for some reason, artillery can shoot a lot further than ships, which again doesn't really make a lot of sense. You can blow up their base from all the way across the map, and so there's some really interesting mechanics like that, and it's free, so try it out. Maybe would you guys like that to be your next homework assignment? Play a video game. Would that be interesting for you guys? You get in your groups and play a video game that's free. I don't know. Seems, and then we can have a conversation about what you like about it and what you don't like about it. WoW, is that a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know. No, you don't want to play a video game. Okay. I guess I like it. Okay. Yeah, it's like a big any game. This game right here, Wargame Red Dragon. It's free it's free until for a week from now. So by the deadline, it'll be free. And so yeah, get in your group, play with other people, figure out the game together, and we can have a conversation about it next Thursday. I thought you were saying World of Warcraft. No, not World of Warcraft. I'm not that cruel. Yeah, beat World of Warcraft in a week. Play this game. This game in particular, Haber. This game in particular. It's free. So, yeah. And so getting your groups with other people, it's a lot more fun with people. The AI will smash you because the AI knows what it's doing and you don't at the beginning of the game. Is the game harder than Command & Conquer? It's a different beast. It really is a different beast because Command & Conquer, you've got your Tiberian mining and stuff like that, and you got your Tasha or whatever it was, the pistols, saboteurs, and stuff like that. The core mechanics of the game is there's a real big rock, paper, scissors thing going on. So like if you can get air superiority over the other side, your planes will absolutely wreck the other side. And planes will wreck helicopters. And helicopters wreck tanks. Tanks wreck infantry. Infantry, if you have SAM infantry, they can shoot down planes maybe. They're not very good at it though. But there's anti-aircraft SAM sites, and so you can deploy those to blow up airplanes. So infantry can take those out pretty well. And so there's this giant rock, paper, scissors mechanic, and a lot of it is based on scouting and things like that. And so I think this is actually a really interesting game to analyze. I'm not... well, I don't want to prejudice you on my final verdict on it, but there's definitely some good things about it, and there's definitely some bad things about it. And so I think next Thursday, just write up a one-page report. What did you like about it? What did you not like about it? And what would you change in order to make it more fun? So you'll need to put in a fair bit of time, play at least a couple games of it, because the first couple times you're gonna have no idea what's happening, right? And so to be fair to the game, you need to play a little bit. Okay. So you see rockets coming in here and tanks up on a hillside and Navy units and aircraft. So it's definitely a different game. And has anyone here played it before? Just out of curiosity. AoE 2.0. It's a different game than Age of Empires. For me, Age of Empires is fun because you get to build walls and towers and build armies, and there is that rock paper scissors element in Age of Empires for sure. Can you video edit our game session instead of a paper? Like if you want to do a video review, but you need to talk about the same things, right? What you like, what you don't like, and what you would change. Okay. How do you make it better? I mean, I guess I'd take a YouTube video if you want. Okay. So I know that some people have dropped from the class. One person said that making the board game was too hard, so I don't know. That's fair, I guess. It is a fair bit of work, but I don't know. Like, making games is fun, dude. I did do the quiz. Thought it was either or. Yeah, no, it's both. But I'll let you submit the guard late. It's fine. Get the new laptops whenever those are available, and the new laptops should be able to run Unreal Engine just fine. So this will make for good. This will make for a good assignment. It's definitely different. It's definitely different. Okay. So your mean professor making you play video games and talk about them. Is this paper a group paper or individual? Individual. Everyone's got their own opinion on things. So yeah, I'm just gonna make you guys play video. Like, you know, in my Japanese class, we have to memorize 50 vocab. I think playing a video game isn't as hard as that. Right? Is the game to play Red Dragon? Yes, specifically that game. Where'd he go? Wherever it was. Specifically, you must play War Game Red Dragon so that we can all be on the same page. Next Thursday, we can actually have a conversation. I'll unmute you guys and we can talk about it. Okay. So that'll be a fun exercise. It's definitely different. If you guys, it doesn't sound like anyone's played it before, so you'll see what I mean after you put some hours into it. It's definitely a different RTS than what you're probably used to. Okay. So. All right. So let me give you an example of what I mean by game design, because we've gone kind of light on it this semester. How many people here have played a role-playing game before of any kind? Dungeons and Dragons, either tabletop or a computer version of Dungeons and Dragons. Hayburn prefers RPGs. Lave has. Zach has. Stafford Pokemon. Yeah, Pokemon's kind of an RPG. Not exactly. Maine has. Dolan has Sword Butter. I don't know what that means. What is Sword Butter? Fence Butter. Key elements to D&D. Butter and swords. Okay. Actually, we are going to be talking about swords. Swords and butter. Okay, all right. D&D. Okay. Yeah. So So let's talk about Dungeons and Dragons. So in Dungeons and Dragons, there are weapons. Okay. So let's talk about game design, right? Game design. So good game design has interesting choices, right? Interesting choices. And so let's just talk about the weapon design of Dungeons and Dragons, right? So you've got a dagger. A dagger is one option, and it does a d4 damage. A d4 means it does between 1 and 4 points of damage, which means it has an average of 2.5 damage. You've got a short sword, which does a d6. In other words, if you hit somebody with a short sword, you roll a 6-sided die, and you got a 2. Okay, I did 2 damage. That's if you haven't played D&D before, that's how it works. And so a short sword averages 3.5 damage. Hey, Ada! Your friend's calling. Come in here, get the phone. I'm my daughter's social media coordinator. All right, dagger, short sword, and then what is bigger than a short sword? Here, Shoshana, you haven't talked to her in a while. What is bigger than a short sword? A medium sword? No. Long sword. All right. Okay. How much damage does a long sword do? Anyone want to guess? Or if you've played D&D before? Deals a d8, so it does 1 to 8 points of damage, which is an average of 4.5. Bigger than a long sword is the bastard sword, which deals 1d10. In other words, 1 to 10 points of damage, which is 5.5 points of damage. And then bigger than the bastard sword is the great sword, which deals 2 dice 6 damage. So we're not going to be talking about axes and things like that. Medium sword for the win. Yeah, that. you know how you can like create your own content on Games Guild and sell it. So I think there's a opportunity there for the medium sword handbook. It deals a d7 damage. All right. So here are your options for swords. Right. You've got your dagger, which is a D4. You got your short sword, which is a D6. Long sword, which is D8. I'm kind of being edition agnostic right now, but this is more like a third edition. Pathfinder also uses these numbers system. So if this was all you had to go on,
There wasn't.
she didn't call you?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Ada, here. Ada,
It's in my independent study right now.
here. I know it's independent study, but here. She moved to Oregon. It's good to keep up your friendship. Okay, so if this is all you had to go on, which sword would you choose? Like, doing more damage is good. If you haven't played Dungeons and Dragons, a big part of Dungeons and Dragons is fighting dragons and other monsters. And so you're hitting them and you want to do more damage to them. So which one would you pick? This is all you have to go on, Haber. There's no skills, there's no classes yet. Just this. No strength. We're not talking about any stats, just this. This is all we have so far. We're designing a new game, whatever. This is all we have to go on. What sword would you guys pick to use if you were a player in this system? Greatsword. Yeah, exactly. All of you guys got it right. Greatsword. Why? Because it does more damage. Right? It does 7 points of damage on average. A bastard sword does 5.5. A long sword does 4.5. A short sword does 3.5, and a dagger does 2.5. There's absolutely no reason in this game design to ever pick anything but the greatsword. You guys with me? And so if this was our RPG design, this is a bad design, right? And some game designers will say, yeah, but some people, they just want to use a dagger because it's more cool, Yeah, no. Bad game design. There needs to be some sort of mechanical reason for somebody to pick each one of these 5 options here. Do you guys understand? There needs to be some niche that each one of these things fills. And if the only choice you're making is based on damage, then it's a very boring game design, because one of your weapons is going to do more than the other ones, right? It's just how it is, right? And so if all you have is one axis of variance, you have the dagger on the bad side and the greatsword on the good side, this is stupid game design. This is idiotic game design. And so one of the ways to do it is to introduce them over time. Yeah, and that's something that some RPGs do. Chapter 1, you get a dagger. Chapter 2, you get a short sword. Chapter 3, you get a long sword. Even still, that's kind of because people just go, oh, okay, I've got a better weapon now, and they throw the old one away and they have the new one. D&D does this. Like, half plate is just monumentally worse than full plate. So the only reason you'd use half plate is because you're level 2 and you haven't found full plate yet. And so it's not a meaningful choice. It's not an interesting choice. So this is called a one-axis game design, right? One-axis game design. In other words, you've got your x-axis here, right? And you've got the great sword at 7, you got the dagger at 2.5, and you've got your different options along the way here. Dagger, short sword, long sword, bastard sword, great sword. Shoot, I think I put one too many options in here. Great sword. Okay, so and so if there's only one axis for comparison and to the right is better, then you can't have interesting game design, right? So yeah, and so in Team Fortress 2, they do side grades, right? So there's some other element that you're judging the weapon on, right? So in other words, maybe you have a weapon that it loses the ability to right-click, but it does more damage with left-click, right? I think there's a weapon like that for the Pyro, right? That the flamethrower loses the alt attack. Yeah. But it does more damage, right? And so all of them are trade-offs. And so in order to make interesting game design, don't use one-axis game design, right? Because players will just look at it and be like, they'll do the math. They're like, yep, that's the right option. And if you go into a raid and you're using daggers, people will be like, why? No, out of the party, out. If you're in a Destiny raid and you're using some weapon that my video went away. If you're in a Destiny raid, they see you using a weapon that has been proven to be suboptimal. They're like, nope, out, kick. They will kick you out of the party. World of Warcraft, nope, out. You're a dagger rogue. Dagger rogues are terrible in the current meta. Out, and they'll boot you out. And so in Skyrim, the heavy weapons are slower than the lighter ones. Great example. So that could be the other option, the other axis, right? So if you do two axis game design, this could be like weapon delay, right? Valheim uses the same thing, right? So this could be, so great swords would have a bigger delay, daggers would have a smaller delay, and in fact, World of Warcraft has normalized weapon damage, right? And so in World of Warcraft, they have what's called DPS. In D&D, it's called DPR, damage per round. And so what they do is, sure, you do double the damage, but you attack half as fast, and so it works out to exactly the same. And so in World of Warcraft, it's actually bad game design, honestly, because what they did originally was, they had different attack speeds, and so sure, daggers were faster, but they did less damage. And so if you have something, so for example, there was an ability called Hemorrhage. And what Hemorrhage would do is it would add plus 16 damage per hit. Right? So if you were a Hemorrhage rogue, then all of a sudden your attack speed matters, right? Because every time you attack, it does 16 extra damage. And so if you attack twice as often, you get the 16 bonus damage twice as often. Do you guys see that? And do you see how that would make a difference? Like in your choice of like weapons and things like that? It doesn't have an air blast, but Flog is great for damage healing, yeah. Do you guys see why all of a sudden that's interesting? But if you...
what are you talking about?
I'm talking about World of Warcraft in this case. Weapons, they're talking about Skyrim too. And so if you have an ability like Hemo that adds damage per hit, having a weapon that hits faster is suddenly more interesting. It's more interesting to use a dagger now than it is to use a greatsword, right? Rogues weren't able to use bleed, so no point in having faster weapons. Hemo isn't exactly a bleed, but it was a rogue ability in WoW Classic, and so every time you hit somebody, it would add 16 damage to it. So and so that would make faster weapons. Yay, faster weapons! Yay, faster! It gives you a reason to seek out daggers specifically. Now, on the other side of things, rogues actually couldn't use greatswords in World of Warcraft, but they could use long swords. And so, what if you had a ability that would give you a free attack? Which weapon should you use? Should you use the light and fast weapon, or should you use the heavy and slow weapon? You hit the button, it's just a free attack on top of your normal attack sequence. WoW always had balance refinements over the years, yeah, to the detriment of WoW. And I'll talk about that in just a second. Right? And so if you could get a free attack in with a dagger or a free attack in with a bastard sword, which one would you pick? And that's just on top of your normal attack sequence, right? Maybe the dagger attacks this often, and the short sword attacks this often, and the long sword attacks this often, and the bastard sword attacks this often. And maybe they've normalized it so that all of them do equal damage, but you get a free attack. A free attack would compensate for slowness. What if it was based on when you auto attack? Yeah, it's just on top of the auto attack. And so a free attack would favor the bastard sword or the long sword, right? So long sword, yay, because that hits for more damage. And so all of a sudden you've got kind of an interesting game design here, right? Where you've got lighter, faster weapons that are good if you're debuffing them to take extra damage on every hit. And then the slower, heavier weapons are better if you have abilities that give you free attacks. Like, let's say Sinister Strike, I think, is a bonus attack. And then if you were partnered with a Tauren Shaman's or a Troll Shaman, they could put down a Wind Fury Totem. A Wind Fury Totem will occasionally grant you 2 bonus attacks, right? And so if you're partnered with a Shaman, all of a sudden that changes things, right? Like, oh, they're using Wind Fury, so I need to switch to my heavier, slower weapon because I want to get extra damage off of that. Okay. You can dual wield light weapons or have a shield. Yeah, that's true. And so we haven't even talked about handedness yet, right? But like, do you guys see how that was interesting game design, right? It's interesting to have, even if they've normalized it all to just do the same base damage based on the skills you have, the delay adds another axis of differentiation between the weapons. Do you guys see what I'm getting at there? Okay. Now, what World of Warcraft did was they took all of these things here and they eliminated all the differences. So as World of Warcraft progressed, they made it so that all of these things here, all of them went away. All that stuff went away. And so all you ever had to do was look at the DPS on a weapon, and it didn't matter if somebody was using Wind Fury, it didn't matter if they were using Hemo, all that mattered was the DPS stat on your weapon. Okay. And so that is what I call bad game design. But wait, it's balanced. Yeah, it's balanced and it's boring AF. Okay. It's bad. Yeah, it's balanced. It's perfectly balanced. You don't want a 100 DPS axe. You don't want that. You don't want a 100 DPS axe doing less damage than a 100 DPS dagger, do you? That doesn't make sense. That's their argument, right? Is that all weapons of equal DPS value should do the same damage no matter what. And to me, that is bad. It's boring. It's just boring. It's just boring game design. You want items to complement each other. You want to find combos. You want to find, like I said, like maybe you were a dagger person that you team up with a shaman. You're like, oh, he's using Wind Fury. I need to switch over to my sword. It's not as good as my dagger, but, because of these interactions. And so what they did was they oversimplified it to the point of blandness. That's the trouble with too balanced. If you have too much balance is boring. Okay. Flip a coin. That's perfectly balanced. Right? Flip a coin. You win. Great. Flip a coin. I win. Great. Completely balanced. Completely boring. Utterly boring. Utterly vanilla. Right? The only difference between an axe and a dagger would be cosmetic. Which cosmetic do you like better? Right? And so the original design for World of Warcraft was actually better than their balanced and iterated versions that they effectively dumbed down and made boring. World of Warcraft, in my opinion, got worse over the years, not better. And I think enough people shared my view that they brought back WoW Classic because I think a lot of people, class design, for example. World of Warcraft used to have like these skill trees and things like that, and later on they decided that was too complicated for our players to deal with, so we're gonna pick them for you. So you just choose an option. We'll pick all the options for you. Boring, right? Interesting choices. Interesting choices is what makes a game good. And World of Warcraft went down the route of having almost no choices. So let's talk about D&D again. All right. So the way that D&D handled these differences here was they added another, maybe not even a second axis. Originally, they did have weapon speed, but you're talking like first edition, second edition. They actually had weapon speeds that everyone kind of ignored. Maybe not everyone, but somebody with a dagger would go first in an initiative, so you could get a stab in before. So that was kind of interesting. Actually, playing with those rules was actually pretty good because spells were generally pretty slow, and so a wizard would announce at the start of the turn, "I'm casting Fireball." And then a fireball would have a speed of like 7. And so if somebody with a weapon speed of 5, they would get to go before you. and they would stab you. And if they stabbed you while you're casting your fireball, you lose the fireball automatically. No concentration check, right? And so there would be some spells that were faster to get off, and some people would pick weapons that had a higher speed or a lower number higher speed, because then you could go up and shank a wizard, and every turn you sit there and just shank the wizard and keep him from ever casting a spell, right? And that was a valid build, right? If you were playing with those rules. Sure to love taking 1% damage with dagger versus 1% damage with the sword. So meaningful. Yeah. Okay, so what did D&D do? So let's not talk 2nd edition D&D with speed rules and stuff like that. What they did was they said these weapons are specific to what class? What class in particular is associated with the dagger in D&D? Yeah, melee. These are all melee classes, right? Greatsword. These are all, melee attacks mostly. One exception. What class in particular is associated with the dagger? The dagger. This is the iconic weapon of what kind of class in fantasy role-playing games? The ranger. No. The ranger, the iconic weapon for the ranger was the short sword and the long sword, right? Someone's sneaky. Very good. Yeah, so these are rogue weapons. Or thief, as it was originally called. And so if a rogue wanted to backstab somebody, they had to use one of those two weapons. Okay? And so a rogue could use a longsword, but then they couldn't backstab. And so that was kind of a ham-fisted attempt to make an interesting choice, although it's not really, because thieves would get off these giant backstab hits, and so they wouldn't want to use a longsword. Like it basically was not an interesting choice. Why would you use a greatsword if you can't backstab? Don't be a thief then. You know what I mean? And so it was kind of a ham-fisted attempt to make these things relevant, I guess. Yeah, and so rangers were encouraged to use these two. So rangers were given the ability to dual wield weapons, dual wield swords, and so rangers were sort of mechanically encouraged to use these two weapons together, and then fighters typically would use these. And so there were kind of game mechanical reasons why classes would use certain weapons. It's a little bit ham-fisted to do that. So let's not worry about that. Instead, let's talk about the actual way that it was balanced properly. So daggers could be thrown. Hey, cool. None of these other weapons can be thrown. I mean, technically you could throw anything as an improvised weapon, but daggers were the only weapon that were a thrown weapon. They were the only sword type weapon that could be thrown. So cool. You got a niche now. Do you guys see that? So the short sword, sure, the short sword does more damage than the dagger, but let's say you can't get into melee, you've wasted your turn. If you have a magic dagger, though, you could walk forward, not quite get into melee, and chuck a dagger at them, right? So you don't waste your turn. Do you guys see that? Aragorn, yeah. Mm-hmm. Do you guys see how that's interesting? So, cool. You have the damage here, and then you've got, other accesses as well. That's an interesting choice. Some people would stick to short swords and just assume they're always going to be in melee. Some people want the flexibility of using daggers, so they can melee or they can throw weapons. Either way. Short sword could be used for backstabbing, right? So that was the niche of a short sword, really. And it could be offhanded. And so for rogues, you could backstab with a short sword. And then for fighters and things like that, you could use a short sword in your offhand. And so if you wanted to get an extra attack, you can attack twice with your long sword and once with your short sword. You couldn't, by default, you cannot wield two long swords. They were too big. Go for it, Carl. And so that was a niche that the short sword was in. And so if you were to specialize in the short sword and invest in being good at the short sword, then you kind of didn't need to be a long sword, right? Let's say that you took an ability that gave you +2 damage with the short sword. +2 damage, is bigger than this difference, and so people would just dual wield short swords. It's a fairly common build for people to do. If you just go heavy into like getting good at one weapon, short sword is a great option because you can hold it in 2 hands. So if you went long sword, short sword, you had to get good at long sword, and you had to get good at a short sword, which splits your resources. It's not optimal, and so that was the selling point for the short sword. Long sword was one-handed. It was the best one-handed weapon. The great sword was two-handed. It's the best two-handed weapon. And so if you have a long sword, you can also use a shield, right? So long sword and shield was a very common thing. And so the option is between doing more damage and taking less damage. Does that make sense? So that's an interesting choice because there's no obvious trade-off there. Do you guys see that? Like, sure, you do more damage with a greatsword, but your armor class is lower. So there's no answer as to which one of those is best, right? Because you don't know how often you're going to get attacked. You don't know how much damage is going to be coming at you. Depends in part on who else is in your party. If you have a tank in the party, maybe you could greatsword and do more damage. You guys see what I'm getting at here? So each one of these weapons has a niche, right? Greatsword is just flat up, we're going to do damage, right? That's its niche. 2 hands, no shield, like it, and that's good enough that a lot of people pick greatsword because like doing damage is what you're supposed to do. You're a barbarian, you just go smack on something with your greatsword. Okay. Shield could be helpful. Longsword and shield would be medium. Yeah, and so longsword and shield is very common. You do less damage, but you take less damage. And if you enchant your shield to be a +5 shield, you've got 7 points more armor than the greatsword. And since you roll a d20, in Dungeons and Dragons you roll a 1d20 and you add your modifiers and stuff like that. So let's say you're at 1d20 plus 10. Let's say that a greatsword person would be armor class 20, and the shield person would be armor class 27. So that's a greatsword person, that's the longsword person, with a +5 shield, which is an end game item. But still, you can see somebody attacking the greatsword person has kind of a 50-50 chance of hitting, and somebody attacking the longsword person has a 15% chance of hitting, right? 55% chance of hitting versus a 15% chance. Let's see, 10 will hit. So yeah, 55% chance of hitting. And on this one, a 17, 18, 19, or 20% chance of hitting. And so by using a greatsword, sure, you're doing more damage, but you've got a 55% chance of being hit. And if you're using the shield, you have a 20% chance of being hit. So you're going to take less than half the damage. Right? Is the extra damage worth it? I don't know. I can't make that trade-off for you. It depends. Right? If you get a huge number of attacks, you have a huge damage bonus, and you're enlarged and all these other things, possibly the greatsword person could just explode an enemy before they get a chance to go. Then you don't take any damage at all. Right? It's not, there's no easy answer for that. And so this is called good game design, right? Even with just these little things here, this is an interesting choice. Just between these two. The bastard sword was used in 3rd edition, and it was either one-handed or two-handed, depending on if you burnt a resource. So if you burnt a resource called a feat, and you got exotic weapon proficiency bastard sword, then it would become one-handed. Otherwise, it would be two-handed. And so if you didn't spend the exotic weapon proficiency on it, there's absolutely no reason to use a bastard sword because the great sword was just better. It's a two-handed weapon. It's completely better. If, however, you spend the exotic weapon proficiency on it, then it's just like the longsword but better. But that's still good game design because it's a resource. You choose to spend a resource in order to gain a bump up in damage. And maybe that resource you spent could have been spent on boosting your armor class instead, or some other thing. And so it's a it's not good when compared to the greatsword. It's just always worse than the greatsword. But it's if you spend the resource on it, then it's a better longsword. Okay, and even if the other nice thing about it is that it actually gives you the flexibility. And so if you're in a party that needs a tank, then you can one-hand it and use a shield. And if you want to get more damage, you can two-hand it, and it gives you a small bonus to damage if you two-hand it. Okay. So you can switch off. It gives you flexibility. So it lets you switch off between a little bit more damage and some more defense. So that is traditionally the 5 different sword types in D&D. And you can see that it's interesting, right? And like, if you're going to make a character, like, it's not obvious, like it was before, which one you had to... Enchantment? Yeah. Dragon Age enchantments were pretty cool. It's not immediately clear like it was before what you have to do. And so if you're gonna maybe you'll go longsword and short sword, because short swords could be offhanded. Get an attack with your main hand, get an attack with your offhand. Or maybe you go longsword and dagger. Get an attack with your main hand, throw your dagger. So you got ranged attacks and you got melee attacks. Maybe you do 2 short swords, so all of your points you invest into resources can just all go into short sword. And get good at that. Maybe you go bastard sword, so you can switch off between using a shield and not using a shield. Maybe you go great sword and just try to explode things with damage, right? All of those and all those different combinations are interesting. So that's my lecture for today on game design. You have any questions about it? Mic drop. They've done more since then. 4th edition added weapon-specific abilities. So 4th edition added, if you're wielding a dagger, you can use this ability. If you're using a longsword, you can use this ability. Yeah. A lot of it that makes sense to you. So when you're designing a game, that's kind of the mentality you should have. Don't just have one axis of comparison. Never have something that's just better than something. Right? Like in Pokemon. In Pokemon, some Pokemon are just better than other Pokemon. Right? Just trash. Right? Balance with drawbacks. Yeah. Yeah, it's like in Pokemon, you capture I don't know. In Pokemon Go, you capture an Onix. You're like, cool, trash. They're like 80% of the Pokemon in Pokemon Go are completely worthless. 90% probably. Almost all of the Pokemon you catch in Pokemon Go are completely worthless. You just throw them in the trash. Not good game design, in my opinion. Now he's going to use a Squirtle when you use a Blastoise. Yeah. And so they try to do things like, we'll add Squirtle Squad Squirtles, and so it's a Squirtle that has a sunglass. No, I'm still not going to use you. You know what I mean? It's like, cool, thanks for making a use. They've come out with like 90 million different Pikachu with different hats, and it's like, great, cool, thank you. Yeah, that's just what I want. Pikachu wearing a baseball hat. That's Pikachu in a trucker hat. Pikachu in a flower hat. Kakuna, Metapod, yeah. Yeah. And in the anime, like, he actually fought with Metapod, which is bizarre. Why isn't my Weedle? Yeah. In Pokemon Go, they actually added a Mega Evolution for Weedle. So, that's actually kind of amusing. My first 100% Pokemon was a Beedrill, which is the 3rd evolution of Weedle. And it was a perfect Pokemon, so I'm like, I'll keep it. And then the first Mega Evolution they added beyond the Starter 3 was for Weedle, and I'm like, that's funny. So I could have Mega Beedrill now, which is still totally pointless, but kind of amusing. Yeah, Pokemon from a game balance standpoint is interesting as far as what they do with the type system. In Pokemon, water does more damage to fire, fire does more damage to plant, plant does more damage to water, and they beyond that, there's like all these different types, and there's all these different interactions and things like that. And Pokemon can have multiple types, and the moves they do don't have to be the same type as the move they are, but if they are, you get a bonus. And so that whole element to it is interesting, but the trouble is like just the design of the creatures themselves is just boring, right? Like almost all Pokemon are not relevant. They're not meta relevant. Ghost, Psychic, Dragon, Earth, Rock. I don't know why you have to have both Earth and Rock, right? The symbols even almost look the same. They look like a little stone, and you're like, is this Earth? Is it Rock? I don't know. Ground? Is it ground type or Rock type? I don't know. Yeah. No. Flying is the only type that can combine with normal. Like, there's all these rules, but the point is, like, just the Pokemon themselves are pretty badly designed, especially in Pokemon Go. Pokemon Go is worse by far in terms of game design. Worse by far in game design than normal Pokemon as well. Okay. All right. So that is game design. That's our lecture for today. On that, I want you guys thinking about that when it comes to Red Dragon. Are there any options that are terrible that you should never take? The way that Red Dragon balances it actually is when it recognizes that one option is worse than another, it will give you more of them. Right? So there's a limit on how many times you can summon a particular unit. So for example, if you have a really good unit, you might only be able to summon it once, right? And if you get a worse version of it, it still costs the same number of build points to build it, but if it dies, you can build it again. And so that's kind of how they balance it in Red Dragon, is they just will acknowledge this is a terrible unit, but you can resummon it 30 times. And so just here, it's a bunch of high school kids, you hand them a pistol, all right, go charge the enemy. You know, you get a gun, you get a bullet. When the man next to you dies, take the bullet out of their dead hand, put it into your gun, you get one shot. You know, go forth and have fun. You know, so that's, you know, that was kind of a way that Red Dragon balanced the fact that some units are just terrible, and so it's just like, all right, yeah, when they die, you can just get more of them. And if you get better units, they're just better. They cost the same. They're 100% better. There's no reason to use the worst one, except if they die, how many times you can replace them. And so in longer games, crappier units are actually sometimes better, just because the people will run out of their good units and have nothing to summon. You know, so okay. So let's talk about cross product. So last time we talked about. Let's go ahead and install this. If you guys want to play Red Dragon with me, I'm not good at the game, by the way, but I will. Where to go? I'll go ahead and install it here. If you guys send me an invite, Red Dragon install. Okay. Get that going. So let's talk about cross product. So cross product is like dot product, and is it freezing? It's freezing, isn't it? Hello? Hello? Can you guys hear me? You guys hear me? Yeah? Okay. So last time we talked about cross product, right? And that lets you know if something's in front of or behind something. Cross product is the same, except if there's a person over here, it'll tell you, are they to the right or are they to the left? That make sense? So cross product is used to tell if something is to the right or to the left of something, and the dot product is used to tell if something's ahead or behind. Okay? Makes sense? There's actually two different cross products. The one we're talking about is called the Scalar cross product. And so let's put this on a graph. Okay. x, y. So let's say we've got a car that's driving in this direction. It's driving towards 10, 10. And we've got a person over here at, what would that be, 12, 5. Okay, so this is called x1, y1. So x1 is 10, y1 is 10. Then we got x2, y2, 12, and 5. Do you guys remember what the equation is for dot product? Are these two things pointed in the same direction? Do you guys remember that? I think I might have said it last time wrong. I think it's, what is it, x1, x2 plus y1, y2? Is that what I told you guys last time? Let's check my notes. Nope, wrong. Wrong. x1, x2 plus y1, y2. I completely did that wrong. Okay, so yeah, don't lecture off the top of your head. Okay, so it's x1, x2, y1, y2. So if they're 1, 0, 1, 0, you get 1, 0. So yeah. It's x1, x2, y1, y2. The dot product. That's the dot product. This is the dot product. The cross product is x1, y2 minus x2, y1. Okay. And mentally, I got those two things confused because I was just doing it off the top of my head. I probably should have plugged some numbers in and verified. That was my bad. Okay, so if we were to dot product these two things, the first thing we'd have to do is normalize them, because technically if you don't normalize them, you get the length of vector 1 times the length of vector 2 times the cosine of the angle between them. I'm not interested in that. That's technically what the dot product is. I'm not interested in that. I want a number when I'm doing game development. I want a number between -1 and +1. So we normalize this, we normalize this. So to normalize them, you compute the length. So the length of 10, 10, what is the length of that? Anyone know? It's going to be square root of 2. Anyone? Remember trig? So the length of vector 1 is 14.4. Or 14.14, sorry. Square root of 2. And the length of vector 2 is 144 plus 25. Square rooted is 13. Okay, so if we normalize it, how do we normalize these vectors? We take 10, 10, we divide it by 14.14. What do we get? Vector divided by a scalar, what do we get? You divide a vector by a scalar, how do you do it? You get a vector, yeah, and each component is what? If you had 2, 2 times 3, this turns into 6, 6, right? That's vector times scalar. It's divided by the scalar, very good stuff. So this will turn into 10 14ths, comma 10 14ths, which is the same thing as 5 sevenths, 5 sevenths. So if we normalize the vector here, so the car is traveling 10 in the x direction, 10 in the y direction. It's traveling at a speed of 14 units per second, let's say. We will replace that with a normalized vector that is 5 sevenths, comma 5 sevenths. Okay. And then for this one, it will become 12 13ths divided by 5 13ths, because the length of a 512, it's a 512 13 vector. Okay. So we divide 12 by the length is 13, so 12 13ths, and 5 by 13, is 5/13. So that is our normalized vectors. Okay. Once we have normalized vectors, then we can compute the dot product and we can compute the cross product. All right. So the dot product is going to be x1, x2. So x1 is 5/7. So it's going to be 5/7 times 12/13. And then the y value is 5/7 times 5/13. And we add, it's not a comma, we add these together. Calculator time. 91. All right, so 60 divided by 91, 0.65 plus. So this number here is 0.65. I'm just doing the math real fast. Times 13 again is 91. 25 divided by 91 is 0.27. 0.65 is 0.92. Okay. So the dot product is 0.92. You guys understand? So what does 0.92 mean? If we get 0.92 as the dot product, what does that tell us for writing code? What does the dot product of 0.92 tell us? Conceptually, what does that tell us? They're looking at each other? It's the opposite. It means they're looking in the same direction. So that means the car, if you just look at the arrows, you can see the car is driving in this direction, and there's a person looking in that direction. So they're facing the same way. With a value of 0.92, with dot product, to recap, the dot product, if you get 1, they look the same way. With 0, they look at 90 degrees to each other, so they're perpendicular to each other. And at -1, they are looking or facing or driving, whatever it means, in opposite directions. Okay, so that's a recap of dot product. And so because we got 0.92, you can see that these two vectors are actually looking pretty much in the same direction. So 0.92 is close to 0.1, so that means they're pretty much looking the same way. So maybe you've got one car, that is driving this way, one car that's driving that way, and they're driving pretty close in the same direction. Okay. And you can use that in a variety of different ways when doing game development. Okay. So let's compute the cross. Do you guys understand that? Like that's used in all sorts of different circumstances. Like let's say you're playing Red Dead Redemption 2. If you're riding your horse and your buddy's riding his horse and you're riding in the same direction, a thing will pop up on the screen saying press space to leap from your horse to his horse, right? And that will only pop up if your vectors are within a certain range. Like let's say within a 30-degree range of each other. If you're running this way and he's going this way, you can't jump between horses. Or if you're going in opposite directions, you can't jump between horses. But if you're pretty much matched in the same direction you're going, it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be exact. There's no such thing as exact almost in these games. But if you're like pretty close to pointed in the same direction, then it'll pop up a little option. You hit space, and your character jumps from your horse to their horse. You give them a nice hug and ride on their horse from behind. You guys understand? It's like silence on Discord right now. Okay. So cross product. 1 is yeah, that's exactly right, Habron. And then 0 is this, right? So if one car is driving across an intersection and you're waiting at the intersection, the dot product of the way you're looking is going to be 0 or close to it. So cross product is to determine if something's to your right or if something's to your left. So let's do the math on this. And So x1, y2, that's x1 here. Oh, no, that's the eraser tool. So that's x1, that's y2. So it's going to be 5/7 times 5/13 minus x2, y1, 5/7 times 12/13. Okay. And so it's just algebra. It's just middle school algebra, really. All of this stuff sounds really complicated. It's linear algebra, but if you know fractions and you know how to multiply, that's it. So just multiply these things out. I'll just do it on calculator real fast. So 7 times 13 is again 91. 25 divided by 91 is 0.27. So this part here is 0.27. And then I'll do the math on this side here. So it's 60 divided by 91, which is 0.65 minus 0.27. So it's going to be negative 0.39, basically, is the answer. Okay. All right. And so what that tells us is that the, like let's say you're in Cyberpunk and you are driving a car in this direction and there is a pedestrian on the side of the street. So you get a vector from them from you to them by subtracting your positions, and that will give you a displacement vector towards them. And they want to know, am I to the right of the car or am I to the left of the car? Because in Cyberpunk what happens is, let's do top-down view. You got a car, the car is driving this way. If there's a pedestrian here, they need to know they need to jump this way. Do you guys understand? And a pedestrian on the left side of the car is going to jump to the left. Do you guys understand? You don't want a pedestrian here launching themselves in front of the car, right? That'd be very awkward. No, and they throw themselves in front of the car. You need to know which way to dive out of the way. And if it's Cyberpunk, of course, a pedestrian over here is going to scream and dive that way, and a pedestrian 10 miles over here is going to scream and dive that way. But at least they get their direction right. CD Projekt Red at least has their vector algebra down. So, how do you do that? Well, if the dot product is negative, they're to the right. If the dot product is positive, they're to the left. And destroy. That's it. Okay. So, yeah. If it's zero, they're either straight ahead or backwards. So positive number, positive 1 is over here. This is positive 1. They're due left of you. Negative 1 is due right of you. Okay. So negative 1 is 100% to the right. Positive 1 is 100% to the left. 0 is either ahead or behind. Okay. Questions? Maine, do you see how this is useful? Good. All right. So let me go into Unreal Engine and show you guys this in Unreal Engine. Let's quit out of OneNote. Let's go to Spring. And so pause it, and it also depends which order you do the vectors in, right? But I'm treating the first vector as sort of your car, and the second vector is like the direction to the person. If you did that in the other order, if the car was the second one and the person was the first one, you'd flip the signs. Okay, so let's have our snowman. Let's see, did I name it properly? I did not, did I? Great. So Frosty Talks. All right. So let's go over to Frosty Talks, edit the blueprint editor. This is the thing that it's a, if you look at it, it's just a sphere trigger. And so when somebody walks within it, it triggers something. And right now it's just printing hello when you walk next to it, and it plays bird sounds, which never stops. I'm going to delete that. So when you walk next to Frosty, it says hello. When you walk away from Frosty, it says bye. We typically use this in video games to do things like doors and lights and things like that. So you walk up to a door, you have an invisible sphere trigger on it or a box trigger, depending on what shape you want. You walk up to a door, the door opens. Have you guys seen this in video games before? Where you just like walk up to a door and it opens? Anyone? Like in old video games, you'd have to use to open a door. In a lot of video games nowadays, you just walk up to a door and they slide open. So we're going to have Frosty here say if it is to the right or to the left of the player. So Frosty is now going to be a NPC in Cyberpunk 2077, and he will announce whether or not he should be diving right now to the right or to the left. And we can probably have it play a scream every so often because the pedestrians... I don't know if you guys have seen this in... I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about. If you haven't played the game, you're really not missing very much. But there's all sorts of bugs with the pedestrians. Weird pedestrians get more realistic AI. Let's see if they have any pictures of it. No. It wasn't that funny. But the pedestrians will just freak out at random times. Okay, so we'll just have Frosty, we'll say every second it'll announce whether it is to our right or if it's to our left. Okay, you guys understand? So how do I make it happen every second? A couple different ways of doing this. Any ideas? How could we do this? Any ideas? One option we could do is on begin play. I don't need you anymore. We could create a timer. So you can have a timer that will trigger every second. What I'm going to do though is I'll just tie it into event tick. I'll just show you the simpler way because we haven't really talked about times and timers yet. So I'm just going to get the world time. Time. Nope. Time. And set timer. Fixed time step. Where are you? Timer. Elapsed, maybe. Simulation elapsed. Time elapsed. Unreal Engine 4. Look at that speed. Look at that internet speed right there. It's fantastic. Get real time. Get accurate real time. How is that not showing up? Why is that not on the get accurate? Weird. Okay. Oh, because it's not a... That's why. Okay. It's context sensitive. So if you drag out from the white line here, if you have context sensitive turned on, then it will only show nodes that actually take a arrow. So what we want to do is we want to get the time. We want to see if the time is if it's greater than a second since the last time. So we're going to get the time. That's an integer and partial seconds. So we'll just get that. Compare it. If it is greater than the last time we ran, and what is the last time we ran? We're going to need to make a variable. So we're going to learn how to make variables. Yay! Variables. Are you guys paying attention? Are you ready for this? Eddie, can you bring in my iced tea? I'm going to need some hydration. We're learning something really important today, which is called variables. So how do we make a variable in Unreal Engine? Right here, there's a variables tab. You guys all see this? There's a little plus button. Thank you, Ada. My students are going to need hydration also. This is going to be crazy. All right. So we're going to make a variable. We're going to make it. You going to play Scalar? Yeah, go for it. We're going to make a variable that's going to hold the last time we screamed and dived out of the way. And so get time, get day, get hour, get second. Yeah. It's all there. It just the context sensitive menu was hiding it. Get accurate real time, get time seconds since rule was brought up. Is that, yeah, let's do that one instead. Let's get the time in seconds. And so that's a float. Yeah, I don't want integers. Okay, so we're going to make a variable. And you do so by clicking on this button right here. If you mouse over that plus, you can make a new variable. Bloop. And I'm going to call this variable last spoken, because the last time that Frosty said something, it'll be stored in here, and we're going to store that as a float. You click on the little tic-tac symbol there, the little chicle, and we're going to change it to a float, which is that kind of lime green color there. And we can make it public if you want. It's not going to matter for this thing, but yeah, we'll talk about that later. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to say if the number of, like let's say it's 15 seconds into the world, and the last time we spoke was 13 seconds. So what we want to do is say, yes, it is okay. So if it has been more than a second, so what we can do is we can drag last spoken in here, bloop, and we'll choose get, bloop, and we're going to add 1 to it because that's the that is the delay, and we can actually make that into a variable if we want. If you right click on it, watch this, right click, promote to variable, bloop. So now we have a new variable, and this will be called speak delay. And we'll make that public also just for the hell of it. And so speak delay, if we compile it, save it, speak delay, you will see down here, it defaulted to 1 because I had a 1 there before. But this is where you set the value if it's not set. So what's going to happen, it's going to take the last time we spoke, which was, let's say, 13 seconds into the simulation, add a second to it to get 14. And then we're going to see, is the current time greater than that? So if the current time is 14.5, yes, the current time is greater than the last time we spoke. Therefore, it is A-OK for us to speak again. And so if it has been more than a second since the last time we spoke, congratulations, we are going to print string yo. And we are going to set last spoken equal to the current time. So we're going to set the last spoken equal to the current time. So by doing this, so if we speak at 14.5 seconds in, we're recording, okay, the last time we said something was at 14.5 seconds. And then every tick that goes by, it's going to check, has it been a second, has it been a second, has it been a second, 14.6, 14.7, 14.8, 14.9, 15. And it's going to keep comparing the current time against the last time we spoke plus 1. And once it exceeds it again, then it's going to print yo, and it's going to say, okay, the last time we spoke was 15.6. And so this is a very simple way of doing a timer. And the better way of doing it is to use the timer functionality. So you can actually make a timer. And So yeah. So if we do this and save it and compile it, and come back over here and run the game. Yo, 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 yo. So once a second it is printing. It is printing honk 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 honk. Oh, because I'm in front of the chair, right? So you see, once a second it's printing that. If I drive in front, honks at me. Okay. And so that's how you can cause things to chill out, right? So the honking thing, probably we should do the same thing, because you see how it's just spamming honk 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 over and over again. So yo yo. Okay. So that is how you can slow things down, get them to chill a little bit. Any questions about this part so far? We haven't done a cross product yet. We're about to do a cross product. You guys get hydrated? So we just covered a couple really big learning points. One is how to make a variable, how to get a variable, how to set a variable. You just drag the variable out. Thanks for saving right in the middle of that. Thank you. What is that last function set? So you can get the value of a variable by dragging out and choosing get, and that will grab the current value of the variable. Or you can drag it out and choose set, and then that will set the variable. So in C++, this would be getting the value of x. This would be setting the value of x. Okay. So set sets the variable last spoken, and it is setting the last time we spoke to the current time right here. Okay. Get time seconds is the one you want to use because you can pause the game and time does not advance when the game's paused. And there's also time dilation factors like you enter matrix, slow-mo, and things like that. So this is the one you want to use. That's the one I was looking for. But again, I was stymied by the context-sensitive thing there. Okay, so now let's do a cross product. So let's get rid of you. Let's just hook you up there. And so now we know that this is going to activate once per second. All right. So what we want to do is we want to do a cross product, and we want to see if the cross product is either negative or positive. Okay. So we need to do a couple things. We need to get the displacement vector from us to the player, or actually from the player to us, right? Because the player is like the car, and then Frosty is going to announce whether or not he needs to jump to the right or jump to the left. So let's get the player. Get context sensitive player. So we're going to get player 0, the first player. So we're going to get their thing, and we're going to get their forward vector. So get their forward vector like that. And so that's the direction the player is looking. That's the direction the player is looking. And then we need to subtract Frosty's position minus the player's position. And that'll create a vector pointing towards Frosty from the player. It's a displacement vector. And so let's get our position. So collision component, sphere collision, sprite component. Yeah, let's just get world position. Get world location. So we're going to get our location. It's going to return a position. And then we're going to get the get location. We're going to get the location of the player. And we're going to subtract these two things out. So it's going to be Frosty's location minus the player's location. And this will create a displacement vector from player pointed at Frosty. We have to normalize it, so it's of unit length. And so now we've got the direction that we're looking, and then we've got the direction pointing at Frosty. And we want to see if Frosty is to the right or to the left. So we are going to do a cross product. Cross product. 2D cross product. Cross product. 3, 2, 3. Okay. And we are the first one. They're the second one. And you'll notice that this cross product here is actually returning it's actually returning a vector. And so like I said, there's two different cross products. The one that I've been talking about is called the scalar cross product. I wonder if they have that in here. Or if UE4 has a scalar cross product. Somebody's texting my daughter again. Oh, okay. So let's just print out. So the scalar cross product is one thing, and then the vector cross product is another. So let's see if we can cast between that. There we go. Compile, save, run. And so what the vector cross product does is if you have a vector pointed this way and a vector pointed this way, the cross product gives you the vector pointed at a normal at 90 degrees to the two vectors. So it's called the right hand rule. So if you have x and y, then z is the direction of the cross product. Okay. And so the vector cross product is used, for example, to find the normal vector of a triangle. With a triangle, you got a vector pointed this way, a vector pointed this way. The normal vector points straight out of it. It's the cross product. So that's the vector cross product, not the scalar cross product. Okay, so as we walk around, you can see, damn it, that thing's honking at me again. Okay, so the z vector, I think, is the value we want here, right? Yeah, okay. Who is texting my daughter? It's crazy. Or are they texting me? I don't even know. Nope, it's my daughter's friends. Okay. So in this case, because we're on the xy plane, the z is actually going to give us the number we're looking for. So I'm going to right click on this, choose split, and that will give me the x, the y, and the z separately. Z is the one that I'm interested in. And I'm going to say branch. So actually we'll do a comparison less than 0. So if the z component is less than 0, what was that? It's to the right, I think, in this one. Then we will do a branch. And so the result of this will tell us, are they to the left? Are they to the right? Okay. I think that we were getting a plus if they're to the right. So I think the math was backwards on this one. It doesn't matter. Print string. And I will jump to the right. And if you get a negative number, then it will print I will jump to the left. So let's see if this is going to work out mathematically. Play. Okay, so Frosty is saying I will jump. No, it's backwards then. Okay. So the original math was correct then. this, I'm just going to delete for now. Okay, so when I play the game now, switch into full screen mode, maybe? There we go. Okay, so when I'm running this way, it's Frosty saying I'm going to jump to the right. It's going to try and get out of my way. You see that? But if I were to be coming at it like this, it says I'll jump to the left. I'm driving at it, I'm driving at it. It's going to go, ah, and then it's going to throw itself that way. Whereas if I'm driving at it like this, it'll jump to the right. Do you guys see that? Understand? If I'm driving this way, it'll jump to the left. If I'm driving this way, it'll jump to the right. You guys cool? Like the pedestrians on GTA. Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what you do. You take the cross product. The cross product tells you if the car is driving this way, which way do you dive out of the way, right? So one more time, looking at the code for that. So this code here is just, all that code down here is just to have it speak once per second. Okay. So all this over here is just making sure that that Frosty doesn't spam us with things like the Cherry was doing. And then this code here is, shouldn't be in there. So this is vector 1, comment. Vector 1 is the direction the player is looking. And if I wanted, I can make that his velocity instead, right? So I can make it so that the it triggers on the velocity instead of just the way they're looking. And then this part here is the second vector. Vector 2 is direction from player to Frosty. So the first vector is the direction the player is looking. And maybe I'll move it up here. Second vector is the direction from the player to the Frosty. And then it's going to cross product their cross product vector 1 and vector 2 to see if Frosty is to the right or left of the player. And we're pulling out the Z, just the Z component, which is the equivalent of what we were doing earlier with the scalar cross product. And then if the number is less than 0, they are to the left. And if it's greater than 0, it's to the right. Yeah. So the numbers are backwards from what we had before. But like I said, it doesn't really matter because if you just change the order of the vectors and what order you're doing them in, then you'll just get a different sign. So it's not like the dot product. The dot product, for the dot product, 1 always means they're looking the same way. -1 always means the opposite way. With cross product, it just depends on which order you do, which one's vector 1, which one's vector 2. And so you just, whichever you pick, you just see which one's positive, which one's negative. But that's what will tell you if they're to the right or to the left. Okay, that's our lecture for today. Maybe I'll put up a little quiz on that as well. But your assignment for due next Thursday is to play a video game. Okay. I'm a mean professor. Slave driver. So it is important in this class though to really understand those principles of game design. So I want us to have a conversation about it. So next Thursday, I'm going to unmute all of you guys. We'll just talk about it, okay? And I won't even record it. It won't go up on YouTube. It'll be fine. We'll just talk about it, okay? But your homework is to submit a little one-page essay. What you liked, what you didn't like, what you would change, okay? Time to RTS, yeah. And if you guys want, you can go onto the gaming channel, hashtag gaming on Discord, and just say, hey, I want to play Red Dragon Saturday at 7 o'clock. Let's get a game together, because a 6-player game is more fun than a 2-player game, right? So just see if you can get a group of people together. I know some of my former students play Red Dragon as well, and they would be excited to play as well, except they would probably destroy us. So maybe it's a bad idea. I don't know. Okay. So that is it for today, guys. Thank you very much. Enjoy your weekend. Play some video games. Stay healthy. And I will see you guys on Tuesday. All right.